Hey guys, it's JinJinx, one of the Monster Hunter math guys. Yes, that dashing young man you see on the left is me. I often end up using a camera when I'm streaming. And for those of you who saw the community post, my dental surgery was successful. My mouth is no longer numb, but it is still aching a little bit. And yes, we do have those bone meta videos coming out for you guys soon. However, there are over 40 builds to those videos, so it will take a second for us to get everything edited. But while we get all of that together, I did want to make this quick video to just spend a moment gushing over the Switch Axe changes in Iceborne. As you may know, I am a Switch Axe main, however I end up playing a lot of Lance, Longsword, and Dual Blades because Switch Axe has some pretty bad matchups. Part of the reason why Switch Axe is my favorite weapon is because it has such fluid gameplay due to its combos and its aggressive nature. It's the definition of high risk, high reward. Now, while some of the changes do add new defensive options, they don't mitigate all the risk by any means. None of these new moves, as far as I can tell, have any iframes, so they're purely repositioning tools, but the repositioning tools give you a lot more options. So, what are the changes then? Well, let's talk about the moveset changes first, and then we'll talk about the numbers I crunched. Now, the TLDR version of the moveset changes is that Sword didn't really change that much, except for the new Clutch Claw combo attack you can do that is very situational. But Axe mode got a lot better because it's not only better at sniping attacks into small windows, it also has a slightly higher motion values and has a new Power Axe buff that makes it easy to flinch and trip monsters. And it has really nice evasive options now. So first up is the move I'm sure everyone is wondering about, the Heavy Slam. You can initiate this attack after a minimum of 3 wild swings, at which point you press triangle and you'll do this double hit Heavy Slam attack. Now this attack empowers your Axe mode. This buff lasts for 45 seconds and it does not increase the damage of your attacks. What it does is increases the flinch values. And no, it does not have to hit a monster in order for you to get the buff, so you can go ahead and do it at the beginning of a hunt before you engage to have the buff ready. I'll be honest, I have no idea how much it increases the flinch damage by because I haven't gone through the testing of that yet. But regardless, it is a buff to the flinch values, meaning that while you're in Axe mode with the buff, you will be flinching and tripping monsters very easily. This allows you to have very distinct play patterns against certain monsters. Basically, you can soften up the target's legs and then use Axe mode with Empowered Axe to beat on the legs until it trips over, switch to Sword mode, beat on face, repeat. And yes, you can use your Clutch Claw attack to soften a monster's hit zone now and make you deal more damage to it. I did do some testing in the beta to figure out exactly how the mechanic works, although of course it is tentative because this is a beta, so it's very possible that these values are just temporary and may change. I'm also working on a video covering the details and results of that testing that I'll have out for you guys very soon. But the gist of it is that it adds anywhere from 20 to 5 hit zone value on that particular monster part. So A, this is amazing for so many weapons because now you can make monsters like Anjanath or Deviljho much easier to trip. And B, you can also just dunk a lot of monsters more easily because you can easily access their head while they're in the air. And yes, Switch Axe does have a fancy little combo to go into the Clutch Claw grapple state, but we'll cover that in a second. Combine some softened legs with Empowered Axe and you have Trip City. As for the Heavy Slam attack itself, it is the highest motion value move in your kit. Now, maybe. I'll explain the maybe when we get to discussing the actual numbers changes. But either way, Wild Morph is still probably a more reliable wake up because the spacing is so tight and easy to mess up for a Heavy Slam for a wake up. I'll be honest, outside of getting the buff, I haven't been using this attack a lot. The problem is I'm pretty sure the other combo options you have in your kit are simply higher DPS. Now, I haven't crunched the motion value per seconds yet, so I'm not 100% certain on this, but I'm pretty sure that Wild Morph still deals better DPS than this move does. Plus, Wild Morph has better looping options now. In fact, let's talk about Wild Morph next. So, Wild Morph itself is completely unchanged. And for those of you who didn't know, Wild Morph is your highest motion value per second combo that Switch Axe has in the kit in current Monster Hunter World. Keep in mind that these frame counts are old and I have not personally double checked them. I do plan this weekend to go through and record all the new Switch Axe combos so that I can get appropriate frame counts for Iceborne. And yes, the sword motion values in bold do account for the 1.17 modifier that power files give them. The only reason Wild Morph looping is worse than using sword mode with amped files is because you have to morph back. When you morph back, you're adding in a low damage attack for extra animation time, so the total looping combo ends up dealing less DPS than sword combos. That and I had positioning issues for looping it because the Wild Morph moves you forward by quite a large amount. But now we have a Wild Morph combo that's very decent damage, not much animation time, and is very good at dodging monster attacks and then punishing them. Now, this new combo doesn't actually rely on a new move, it relies on a new mechanic for a move. And the new mechanic is a very simple change to the Fade Morph. You can now animation cancel the recovery frames of the Fade Morph into a Wild Swing. Now, if you don't play Switch Axe, you probably don't know this, but Fade Morph has a long recovery time. And in current Monster Hunter World, the only attack that can animation cancel this recovery time is doing a step-in Sword Morph, which did have its uses but was relatively niche. But now we can cancel a Fade Morph into a Wild Morph into a Fade Morph into a Wild Morph. Now this is very likely to be the highest DPS combo your Axe mode has. I haven't frame counted yet, but Sword mode should still out DPS this for pure health damage numbers. But with Empowered Axe, I am sure this is going to end up being the highest flinch per second combo you can do. Plus, Fade Morph and Wild Morph have pretty much the same amount of movement, so it does fix some of the positional issues that Wild Morph used to have. This can be an excellent in-out combo if you're in Sword mode and the monster's about to use an attack that you can backstep out of with your Fade Morph. And it's a great combo to spam if you're just trying to trip something. This might honestly be my favorite change they've done to Switch Axe. Alright, next up let's talk about the changes to Wild Swings, because there are a few. So after your first and second Wild Swing, every Wild Swing after that has higher motion value. Maybe. Again, we'll cover the maybes when we talk about the numbers. But yes, you can spam Wild Swings and they will do more damage now. It's still not very efficient DPS though. And another change to Wild Swings is the Slinger Burst Backstep. So one issue Wild Swings always had in regular Monster Hunter World is that you can't animation cancel out of it except for doing either an overhead slam or doing a Wild Morph. Basically, you can't roll out of it. Once you use a Wild Swing, you are committed to attacking. However, with this new change, you can press L2 when you have Slinger ammo and you'll do a Slinger Burst while backstepping a really far distance very quickly. This is really nice because you can try to build up to a heavy slam, and if you misread the window and are about to get decked by a monster, you can just GTFO with the Slinger Burst backstep. However, keep in mind I'm pretty sure it doesn't have iframes. The only problem with this Slinger Burst backstep is that it's a full disengage. You don't really have any step-in options after it. You have several options you can use to attack afterwards, but only 2 of them will actually close the distance you made by using the backstep. One is to Morph Sweep, which you'll miss most of the hits because of the distance. The other is to Shit Stab, but I call this the Shit Stab because it's literally the worst move in your entire kit. So yeah, it's not very easy to punish with it unless the monster comes with you when you backstep, but it is a very good disengagement tool. I'm pretty sure there's no iframes on this one either. This is the only Slinger Burst move you have that actually moves you. You can Slinger Burst after a side chop, a Shit Stab, or after a Fade Slash, but why? I'm not really sold on Slinger Burst being useful outside of the new movement mechanics. Speaking of the new Fade Slash, let's talk about that. You might be like me and forget that Switch Axe actually has a Fade Slash in normal Monster Hunter World, because it's shit and you never use it. But this is what it looks like in Iceborne. Yeah, that's hard. Now again, I'm pretty sure this doesn't have iframes. I at least haven't managed to iframe with it so far. But it's a really nice and slick disengagement tool, and you also do have punish options through using a step-in Morph Slash. A nice note about this is that you have an active attack hitbox for the entire animation of your Fade Slash. This means if you use the Fade Slash a little bit early when a monster is charging at you, you can still clip them with the end of the animation. This can lead to some nice skillful plays. This move combined with the Parax's buff is a big part of the reason why Switch Axe will no longer be as bad against the matchups. See, the reason why Switch Axe has such matchups is because if you cannot reliably iframe hop through certain attacks, and some of them are physically impossible to iframe hop through, you struggle to snipe any damage in. The only good damage your Axe mode had was Wild Morph, which takes 4.5 seconds, and then your sword combos take a minimum of 3 seconds, and you have to hop after them, you can't roll. You literally have no good sniping options for small windows of attack. But now in Axe mode, you actually have several good sniping options thanks to this new Fade Slash. My personal favorite is Rising Slash into Fade Slash. The combined motion value of this is 65, which is very decent. And this snipe combo takes 2.67 seconds to complete. However, you spend less than 2 of those seconds actually in front of the monster before the backstep in the Fade Slash starts. This means if your angle is right and your timing is good, then you will spend less than 2 seconds in front of the monster before just GTFOing. Which means you can fit this 65 motion value in any 2-second window, which is pretty much every attack window in the game. Now, of course, you have to make sure that you're gonna get yourself out of the next attack hitbox, so you probably have to be aimed perpendicular to the monster in most cases. But combined with Power Axe, it makes it very good for tripping monsters you don't really have big enough windows to use sword properly. We'll talk more about combos when we get to the numbers, because the numbers changes are really what determine how a lot of the new sniping combos are good or not. Also, if you combine all of the new backstep maneuvers together, you can totally meme and fly off to Narnia if you want to. No real practical application, but it's a thing. And finally, the last change to the moveset is the only one that actually changed for the swords moveset, which is the new Clutch Claw combo. Basically, when you do an elemental discharge, if you press L2, you'll do a Clutch Claw attack that actually has an insanely high motion value and then grapple onto the target. You can then use any Clutch Claw attack while on there, making this a great way to soften a monster's hide if you're in mid-combo. Again, I'm not sure how good the DPS is relative to other options, but the fact that it has such a high motion value on the clutch attack might actually make it very good. And the clutch attack itself gives you almost 30% of your amp gauge right away. And yes, anytime you are latched onto a monster with your clutch claw and your sword is amped, you can ZSD instead of using your axe finisher or instead of using the slinger burst. This ZSD strangely doesn't burn any gauge until the explosion, which is super weird, and I'm not sure if that's intentional, but if it is an intentional mechanic, it makes ZSD suddenly kinda good. You still never want to go through with the full explosion on ZSD because the recovery time is so long. Pressing X on the very last tick instead will make you deal less damage on the explosion, but you will be landing right next to the monster and save you over 2 seconds of recovery time, which is a lot better if you want to loop this over and over because the damage is really coming from the explosion ticks. And it takes over 5 of these to drain all of your sword gauge, so you can loop this with Rocksteady for a while. Still have to do some motion value testing to see how worth it this is, but this is definitely potentially a very strong strategy with Rocksteady. Alright, so those are all the moveset changes. As you can tell, I'm very excited about these because they make Switch Axe feel so good. But now let's get to the really fun part, the numbers changes. So please keep in mind this is a beta, so we're not 100% sure if these are going to be the final motion values in the game when Iceborne is released. That being said, let's take a look at what they changed. Let's look at Axe first. So Rising Slash and Overhead both got buffed. This is particularly nice for Overhead because the Wild Swing 1 into Overhead looping combo is a very good, safe, relatively high DPS Axe combo, and you can still use that. In fact, the Side Slash, Rising Slash, and Stab and Wild Slash all combo into Overhead Slash, so it makes for a good combo finisher if you don't want to commit to a big one like Heavy Slam or Wild Morph. And of course, there's the mechanic where after Wild Swing 2, you have higher motion value on all of your future Wild Swings of either 7 or 6 more motion value, which is very nice too. But now for the maybe part I was mentioning earlier, I'm not 100% sure that this is a motion value buff. Aradi was telling me that when he was messing around with Switch Axe, he accidentally pressed options while he was doing his Heavy Slam and noticed that his roll was increased and then decreased back to normal after Heavy Slam, which seems to suggest that it's not actually a motion value buff, it's a roll buff you get after the second Wild Swing that goes for any Wild Swings and any Wild Swing finisher. But I found out about this 5 minutes after the beta closed. So until next weekend, I won't know exactly what that looks like. And realistically, this makes zero difference for Heavy Slam and the Wild Swings because regardless, the motion value I crunched is their effective motion value with the roll increase. However, if the roll increase can also apply to Wild Morph got a whole lot better. So yeah, we'll see next weekend. Now, Fade Slash not only got the insane movement buff, it also has almost 50% more damage now. Very nice too. And everything else is unchanged. Next up, let's look at Sword Mode Unamped. So, pretty much nothing changed. I mean, Heavenward Slash got 3 more motion value, so that's cool. The triple slash you do after 3 triangle attacks also got buffed by 5 motion value, but still doesn't really make it worth it because it's so much animation commitment as well as so much gauge usage. Now, Elemental Discharge's finisher did get a nerf of 12 motion value, however, each of the individual explosions after the first 3 got a buff of 2 motion value. Overall, this is a buff in total damage for elemental discharge, and is also good because you didn't often want to use the full finisher anyway because it just uses up so much gauge and has so much recovery time. Now your elemental discharge crutch claw combo has a total of 62 motion value. That is not bad at all. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's the highest damage crutch claw combo in the game. Now finally, the Crutch Claw finisher, the attack you use to soften monster parts, has a total of 60 motion value. This is actually very high for Crutch Claw attacks. And it's about middle of the road when it comes to animation times for heavy weapons. It's not going to be as slow as Greatsword, it's not as fast as Lance. Realistically, you'll only use this for softening monster parts because you also have the option to ZSD a monster if you do have an amp sword at the time, and that deals significantly higher damage. So, not much changes to Sword, but Sword has always been very good DPS wise. The only issue with Sword mode is of course the terrible iframes on the hops. Alright, let's look at Amped mode and see how that changed. So the Heavensward got another 3 motion value for some reason, and then the Triple Slash did actually get a total of 9 more motion value over the entire combo. I'm still not completely sold this makes it worth it to use because of the gauge usage, but I'll have to do some frame counting this weekend to find out for sure. Now the big thing, Elemental Discharge and ZSD's little explosions got a huge buff. Like 2 to 3 motion value per explosion buff, and that is huge. So if you do a full ZSD where you do the big explosion afterwards that knocks you over, you have 12 little explosions plus 3 slightly larger ones at the beginning. So that's 42 more motion value from the little explosions, although you do lose 13 motion value from the actual explosion itself. Not a huge deal considering those little explosions are where the DPS actually come from with ZSD. So a 29 motion value buff is pretty good, and that's especially good considering you don't use any gauge up when you use a Clutch Claw ZSD. Which is pretty insane, and I'm like 90% sure that it's not gonna make it to live Iceborne. Because if it does, oh boy, Rocksteady ZSD meme runs ahoy. Theoretically though, you're gonna want to do short explosions, meaning you can do up to 11 explosions, and then you have to dismount with X to do a short explosion that has a lot less damage but a lot less recovery time. That got buffed by 29 motion value as well, which is very good. So yeah, weirdly, ZSD might be good in Iceborne, guys. I'm not 100% sure if that's the kind of world I want to live in, but that is the kind of world we might get. Just kidding, guys, but it is interesting to me that they are buffing ZSD, and I like it because a lot of the really cool moves in Monster Hunter World are actually really bad, like ZSD and Dragon Piercer. They're niche at best, ZSD, or useless at worst, Dragon Piercer. Anyway, that covers Switch Axe changes, guys, and I am so hype about this. So hype, in fact, I don't really want to play vanilla Monster Hunter World Switch Axe anymore. It just feels sluggish and inflexible by comparison. Anyway, thanks as always for watching the video, guys. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it and learned something new, and if you're excited about the Switch Axe changes like I am, be sure to let us know in the comments. Thank you as always to Honey over at honeyhunterworld.com for making the tools we use to make sets with. And also a big thank you to Vanov and Sam. Both of them are speedrunners that use Switch Axe a lot, and over the weekend we were discussing a lot of the new Switch Axe changes together. Links to their channels and such in the description. And if you want to chat with them, or me, or just come hang out in general, be sure to check out our Discord server, the Mathlos Nest. We are very hype about Iceborne. And of course we have a Twitter where we post updates about videos as well as just things that interest us, and be sure to check out Tuna on Twitch. He streams Monster Hunter World and other games almost every day, and he will be streaming a lot of Iceborne this coming weekend. Now all of our videos do take a lot of research time, so if you'd like to help support us directly, consider checking out our Patreon. And an especially big thank you to MC Persona, Foray, Yoshi Cho, David Sternberg, XCLK07, Haika, Milky Powder, David Zhu Sinclair, Warren Kios, Hensatsuken, Wed Manticore, Dr. Awesome Farts, Litha Bowley, Bram Orsel, Anti-Spartan, Lightweight, PB Livingston, Jordan Petit, Skylar Yang, Checkleman, Lupin, Mongus, Kumiko, Triple Agent, Alan O'Dom, Baguette, Zimv, Billy Barthol, Magister Obscura, Jamie, and every single one of you who support us on Patreon. It really does mean the world to us. Even though this math robot is pretty bad at emoting, I do mean it. Your patronage is what allows us to continue making the heavily researched, very content-dense, high-quality videos you guys love so much. If we wanted to realistically play to how the YouTube algorithm likes it, we just do a bunch of clickbaity 10-minute long fluff-heavy videos. Theoretically, I could have easily turned this video into 5 separate videos. But your patronage continually inspires us to continue doing things the way we do because, well, it's what you guys love. Deactivating sappyspeech.exe, that's all I got for you guys on this one. We do have that new meta bow builds videos coming out, as well as we'll be doing plenty of streaming this weekend of even more Iceborne gameplay and testing, so be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell and they'll let you know as soon as I go live or those videos go live. That's all I got for you guys on this one. Happy hunting, hunters. We'll see you in the next one. Bye!